Hello and welcome to the Alpha Software Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I am pleased to be joined by Robin Bennett, founder of Start Software and Alpha expert and a regular guest appearer, a guest on our show today. Today, Robin's going to be showing you something that he did in Alpha Anywhere. Like a little demonstration, and then he's going to show you the easy way. So that's the short version of what I've heard about what Robin is doing. But as always, whatever Robin is doing, I think you're going to find it interesting. Keep in mind, you can always post questions by posting them right into the GoToWebinar control panel in the questions box or the chat window. And you could send us an email to guides, G-U-I-D-E-S, @alphasoftware.com. So let's get started. Hello, are you there, Robin?
I am, Dave. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're coming through loud and clear. Let me go ahead and make you the presenter. And you should see a dialog box on your screen.
Thanks, Dave. And you should see
your screen. Yep.
My screen. Yeah, cool. So, universal search. The subtitle this time is Think Like a User, Not a Developer. And just to underline what Dave just said, please do send your questions in as we're chatting. It helps to break things up and keeps it interesting for us and keeps us on our toes. If we don't get to your question live, then I'm sure if you email guides@alphasoftware.com, that's G-U-I-D-E-S @alphasoftware.com, Dave will pass the questions on to me, or one of Dave's colleagues will get back to you. So this, think like a user, not a developer. That's the sort of theme here. But this story's got like all my stories, it's got a beginning, middle, and an end. And the beginning part, as Dave said, is all about how actually the first part is all about how you can use search features in Alpha Anywhere really easily. And I want to show you that, but I'll show you that because it's really not making the most of an application. It's not putting you in the sort of headspace of your users. And that leads us on to the middle part of the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, I'll show you how ideas that you have for Alpha Anywhere can end up in the product, which is really rather exciting. And certainly in our company, we have bragging rights as to who's got the most ideas into the product, Dave. So I'm not sure who's winning. I'm not going to say who's winning, but it could be me. It could be me. It could be somebody else. I don't know.
It could very well be you. Yeah, I wouldn't rule
but
that
anyway,
out.
I don't like to brag. So this is us. This is Start Software. We're a software company. We've got an office in the UK, a sister company in Australia, and much more importantly, we've got Alpha developers who work for us all around the world. We're always helping companies who have problems with development or need projects troubleshooting or need software systems finishing off. Perhaps you've started a system and you don't know how to finish it. We can help you with that. So do get in touch. My email address is on the screen there if you think we can help you with your Alpha project, or indeed if you'd like to work for us. We're always looking for new developers wherever you are around the world. So let's have a look at some of the ways that you can search in an Alpha Anywhere built application, because searching is certainly one of the things that your application, whatever it is, whether it's a web app or a mobile app, you'll want your users to be able to do. Now I've put up a screenshot here. I'll actually go live to the system in a moment. A shot from one of our products. The product is built using Alpha Anywhere, and the product is called Alpha Tracker. Alpha Tracker is a system that we sell to companies in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand primarily. It runs their businesses. So it's used by hundreds of companies every day, thousands of users. And like I say, the product itself is built in Alpha Anywhere. And this is one of the screens that's in the system. This is a list of quotations, I think, proposals or quotations. And you can see there's lots of ways for users to search this screen. So the one I've labeled number 1 is a horizontal row of fields that are where the user would put their search. In Alpha terms, that's called a search path. Number 2 is a quick search. That's a one-box search. So 2 is a box search. So you can key in one box on the screen, one box you can key into one screen, and that can search either one field or multiple fields in the system. Number 3 is a search bar. It used to be called alphabet search buttons, and in fact still is called that in the product, but in fact it's also called custom search buttons. The reason it was called alphabet search is because it would have been like a bar with A, B, C, D, E on, and you would have linked that to a field in your database. So for example, company name. So if you pressed F, you got all the companies that began with the letter F. These days, it's much more sophisticated, and this here we have set to be filtering by status of quotation, and that's a typical thing you do with an alphabet search or custom search bar. Number 4 is another search. This is a search within the sales submenu. So this is a tabbed UI built system. So there's a menu down the left-hand side, opening screens in tabs running across. And number 4 is a little searcher that we've built that applies only to sales. Now, Dave, what we've done here, each submenu has its own little mini searcher. So if you're looking for a quotation, which is in the sales section, and you type in a company name or a quote number or something into that box, then it's gonna search the quote list for you automatically. And we've got those throughout. So the clients, yeah, it's really nice because if you're in that area anyway,
Yeah.
you know, then that works quite nicely. And number 5 is really the topic of this webinar, because number 5 is a universal search that we built that really is, let's say, the story of today's webinar. Let me just show you very quickly how you put those things together. If you're a relatively new user of Alpha anyway, you might be thinking, well, those are all great, but how do I switch them on? That, by the way, was a grid component. A grid component allows you to access data live from a database and present it on screen in a variety of formats. If I just open a grid component, I'll show you some of the ways that you can do what I just did. So the search part itself is enabled here. Grid contains a search part, and once you enable it, so if I just take it on and off, you'll see you get properties here on the left-hand side where you can adjust how the search looks, how it behaves, and the fields that you want to search. The quick search, which is the one-box search, I can search for that property. It's actually a property of the grid. Here you go. You enable it, and then you have some, again, some answers to how you want that to behave, whether you want it to search one field or multiple fields. Very flexible, very cool. The alphabet search is this one. So if you just type alphabet into the, ironically, the search box at the top of the properties, you're going to find the alphabet search. Again, you can enable it, specify how it works. And I'm just thinking, Dave, have I missed any more searches off from
I
grid?
think that's it. And you're right about alphabet. Alphabet sort of harkens back to the days of Rolodexes.
It does, but it's still useful, and people always know what it.
Yeah.
You don't have to explain an alphabet search. It's sort of
that's true. Yeah.
Very user friendly. That's how you do it in a grid. If I do it in a list instead, so a list is a control that you put on a component, whereas a grid is a component in its own right. So this is a list that I've just pre-configured just before the webinar started. And again, we have some properties that enable us to switch on the search part. And if you have a search part, you can configure it. You can also have alphabet searches in lists. Not something I very rarely see that. I don't see it very often, but you can actually do it.
Actually, Robin, if I could interrupt you just for a second, and a moment ago said, oh yeah, well, what about the QBE search, the query by example search? Is that one covered?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I'd forgotten that completely. So yes, you can do a sort of query by form, query by example style search as well in Alpha. We don't use those very often actually, but we should probably use them more than we do. Searches also you can have. There's such a powerful, such a sort of a well-refined feature in Alpha because they've been around, you know, since the start of building web apps, I guess. So there's so much you can explore, so much you can investigate and experiment with. But I just wanted to show you briefly how you switched all that on. I just flip back to my presentation. You can see here I've tried to list the options here, and a couple of things I thought I'd forget, and in fact I did just forget because I wrote them down. Search highlighting. I like search highlighting. It's just another thing you switch on. You can see it on the screenshot on the screen there. If you have search highlighting enabled, as the user searches for something on screen in the grid or even in the list, it will highlight where it's being found on the screen. We use like a yellow pen highlighter style, you know, to sort of highlight it. Makes it really good for the users because sometimes in a complex big grid of data, they're looking for something. They know it's in there because the system says it is, but they can't actually spot it. So search highlighting is good. A little caveat. Sometimes it's fair to say that the easier you make it for your user to search, the more work the database has got to do. So sometimes the easier it is for the user, the slower the results, because the database is having to work harder. Just bear that in mind. Now, if you need help, there are ways around that. Always, there's always ways to improve efficiency in an application, and especially in database searching. If you need help, that's the sort of thing you could reach out to a company like ours. You could look on the internet for help. You could probably ask ChatGPT these days for ways to improve the search speed on a database. But you just be aware. So if you, for example, have a grid with 20 columns, and each column is text data and very large blocks of text data, and you put a quick search control on that, searching all 20 columns, that's not going to be quick. And depending on how much data you have, because it's got a lot of work to do. So just be aware of that sometimes how the options you give your user can impact on the speed that the database is searching. I'm guessing you found that yourself, Dave, at times.
That is the case. Yep, absolutely.
So there's some of the built-in ways, some of how it can look in a system. But let's, in fact, what I'll do, I did promise I'd actually show it live, didn't I? So this is Alpha Tracker. I've just logged into our demo system. And if I bring up the screen, which I think was the quote list, wasn't it? We'll see all that live. So here's the search part, here's the quick search, here's the search button here. So all of the quotes that I need to follow up, if I click the follow up button, that's going to filter this list by what I've clicked. I haven't got any in that state. That was a terrible example, but there you go. Well, perhaps I'm on top of my work. I'm on top of my work for once. This is amazing.
There you go.
You can see the custom search buttons. You can color code and you can put styling in. You can even put images if you want to. But let's just flick back and talk about what this webinar is all about. So I'm going to show you a screen. I think, Dave, you may have seen this screen before. Is that screen familiar to you, perhaps?
Well, I typically use Yahoo, but sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Google. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd be amazed.
Once or twice. Yeah.
If everybody watching this webinar live or on YouTube afterwards, I guess has probably used this, certainly this week, probably today, I would think. Google changed the world with search, and they did it with some incredibly clever hardware tech. They also did it with some incredibly clever software tech, but also they just did it with this incredibly simple idea, which is to have one search box. And that's all. You know, I've got some little favorites on here, but generally speaking, the Google page is white with the word Google on, or some image of the day, and one box. It's incredible. And if you think what this is doing, it's ludicrous. It's searching the entire internet and trying to present results to you that are useful. It's extraordinary, but they had this idea from day one, and essentially the interface hasn't changed in, what is it, 20 years? I can't remember. I don't know how old Google is. It feels like a long time now. And before,
at least 25, yeah.
Is it 25? So before Google, you mentioned Yahoo, Dave. People were trying to sort of index the internet.
Put the whole world into categories. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like a table of contents for the internet. Or you had search websites where you had like lots and lots and lots of fields to key into, a bit like my search part in the quotation screen. You sort of had to be specific. You know, I want information from this country about this thing by this person in these dates, and it was, you know, it's just too complicated. Google came along, revolutionized it, one box. So when we were doing a recent release, or I guess it's been probably in the product a little while now, of Alpha Tracker, I thought, should we do something along those lines, like a Google style universal search that would work in Alpha Tracker? If people are working in Alpha Tracker all day, every day, it's their job, they know their way around. But for occasional users in particular, it tends to be management users, you know, directors of businesses. They go into Alpha Tracker, they just want to find what they're looking for. It might be a client, it might be a job, it might be a quotation, it might be a person they're interested in. And they were having to sort of hunt through, Dave, you know, hunt through all the menus. There's loads of menus in Alpha Tracker. It's a big system.
Yeah.
And they're having to hunt through and find it. So we thought, was there like a universal search that we could build that would help them? So we built this at the top left above the menu. It says search, and it's the first thing your eye's drawn to. Now, if I start typing something in, so if let's suppose I'm interested in quotes. If I start typing the word quote, I don't know whether you just spotted that, the helpful Chrome is helping me here with what I typed previously, but this little list of menu items just appeared, which is actually building from this list here. Another thing I might want to do, I might want to add a new record. So if I start typing the word new, it's just given me all of the menu options with the word new in. So I've got new client, new project, new ticket, new quote. And these are all menu options that are in the menu. So I've got new ticket, new quotation, new inquiry. And so what this is doing, it's just searching the entire menu as I type to find the menu options that match. So if I don't do invoicing very often, I can't remember which menu it's in. If I just type invoice, I've got projects, what does that say? Ready to be invoiced, invoice schedules, invoicing, external invoices. I get all of the menu options instantly. So there's a first win. The second thing we wanted this to do, oh, and by the way, the plus button here, because all of our new options, so new client, new quote, new project, they all have the word new in. All this plus does is type the word new into that box using a bit of JavaScript.
Oh,
so if I
all right.
That, here's all menu options. There's a really nice little
that's cool.
shortcut. But the other thing I wanted it to do was to act as this sort of Google search for the data in the system. So if I type in the word center, and I don't want the menu option that's got the word center in, but I just want to know, let's see if I'm looking for a site and I know the word center is in the name of a building, a site. Let's have a look. So it's just found the word center in some projects, in some quotes, and in some sites. So it's opened these 3 tabs up for me.
Wow.
Essentially opening 3 of the menu options that make sense for that word. So I've got e-innovation center, e-innovation center. You can see the word center appearing there in the projects. It's in the quotes because, oh yeah, okay, here's the word center, look. I should have used that search highlighting, shouldn't I? Would have made it easy. And it's also in all of these site names here. But let's look for something different. So if I look for that quote reference, I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to close. I hope people know about this, by the way. In a tabbed UI, you can now right-click a tab and you've got things like close tabs to the right. Really useful. We use that all the time. If I type in a quote ref there, so this is a reference number for a quotation in Alpha Tracker. It's very specific, and the format actually is quite helpful because we tend to put quote numbers in that format. If I now search, it not only brings up the quote screen, but it's actually opened the specific quote that relates to that. It hasn't brought me up a list searched, it's brought me just the detail for that quote.
Wow.
Which is quite nice. So in other words, you can key anything into this top left box and intelligently the system opens the screens that it thinks should apply.
Fantastic.
So we were quite pleased. Yeah, we're quite pleased with this.
If Center wasn't found under projects, then the projects tab would never have launched. Is that right?
Exactly.
And there would be nothing to look at.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Great.
Yeah. So yeah, so I think I just saw a company called Arden. I may have not seen that. Let's have a look. Yeah. So Arden, look, has returned 2 tabs because it's a client called Arden Surveying, and there's some projects for Arden Surveying. So yeah, it intelligently opens the screens that apply to whatever you've keyed in. So how did we do it? Well, it was my idea, but I can't take the credit for the coding. It was Tom in our team that did most of the coding on this one. And what he did was the menu searching. So again, if I type the word new in, I get all of these instant menus. The menu searching is all happening client side in the browser with JavaScript. Because the menu is already in the browser's DOM, as it's called, the content of information that's in the browser, we can simply use some JavaScript that says, okay, all of the menu buttons have a certain CSS class. So loop through all of the things in the DOM with that CSS class and look for things with text that matches what I've typed.
Oh, clever.
And then he sort of injects it in a div that's hidden underneath that search box. So that's how the menu search works. The other search, of course, because it's got to query the database to see, is this a project? Could it be a client? Is it someone's name? Is it a client name? Is it a quote reference? Is it project reference? That's got to happen on the server. So what happens is if I click this magnifying glass. We run, we have an Ajax callback, goes to the server, runs an A5W page, so the XBasic that's in an A5W page, and that XBasic quite simply goes through and says, okay, what you've typed in, is it in the clients table in some key fields? Is it in the projects table in some key fields? Is it this? Is it that? Is it that? Yeah. It then builds the JavaScript and pushes the JavaScript back to the browser to open the appropriate tabs with those screens appropriately filtered.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, it's not, that may have sounded complicated, it may have sounded straightforward, I don't know, depending on how much you've done it. It's not as hard as it sounds, but it took a bit of working out for Tom, and we were chuffed to bits with that.
So can you go back to the menu just for a second? When you're doing a search, like let's say new, for example, is a good example of that, even though you can just hit the plus button. So is it literally, it's literally filtering out menu choices below it. So you're only going to see the ones that say new.
Yeah, so it's not filtering out so much as collecting the ones that it can find, because they all still exist in this list below.
Do they show up at the top? Do they get marked?
Yeah.
They're getting marked.
Here they all are, look. Yeah, so I can just do new quote from there. I can do new inquiry from there. All it's doing, Dave, is literally copying. It's sort of duplicating the buttons that it's found that apply and injecting them back into a div at the top.
Oh, I see. Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So the full list is below, but a list of things you might be interested in are one above. And these work just like the menu options below. If you clicked on new project, it would create a new project.
Exactly.
Much the same
because
way.
Because they are the menu buttons. They're just literally duplicates. So all of the code
is fantastic. Wow.
Yeah. Right. So you can search. Yeah, very cool. So we can search the menu and search the database all from one box. So when we launched this, we were really pleased with ourselves. Pleased with ourselves, in fact, that we thought, well, actually, we want to share this with the alpha community because, that was me just showing. I could show you the code, Dave, but I won't bother. I think I've described it how it works. So the client side on the menu and server side on the other. So so we were pleased with this, and we thought, well, actually, we could share this with the alpha community because you need to know how to write JavaScript to do this. You need to know how to write quite a bit of XBasic to do what we've done. Not everybody's into coding. Alpha is a no code, low code, mixed code, high code environment. Any amount of coding works with Alpha anywhere.
That's about right.
Pretty much. I'm not into marketing, by the way. That don't stick that on your website.
Wait, I'm just copying it down.
So we use this feature. We use the send an enhancement request feature to the development team. And we described what we built. And we said, hey, Alpha software development team, we've built this thing which we think you could incorporate into the tabbed UI as a feature. Then everybody could be doing what we've done. And sure enough, a couple of product releases later from Alpha Software, Alpha Anywhere came out with this feature, which was really cool. So it gave me bragging rights in the office for a couple of days at least. So what I'd like to do is just show you how that works in the product in Alpha Anywhere. So what I've just described and how we did it longhand, you don't need to do any more. You can do it a much simpler way. So I want to show you that. And it's called Smart Search. And as I mentioned at the start of the webinar, Dave, we help a lot of companies who have got stuck with their projects or need help with their projects or want a bit of mentoring or whatever it is. And I don't see this feature being used very often at all. I think it's a really underused feature. So I'm hoping today by talking about it, that people, if they're into tabbed UIs, they'll go, oh, I'll give that a try because it just works really nicely. So I'll just show you how to do that now. So what I've got here is a little application I just put together for the webinar. There we go, which is very, very simple. And in fact, I used another legacy retro feature here, Dave. I used
Start Genie.
Yes, do you remember that? Still around, still works.
Yeah.
The Flying Start Genie. This one's brilliant. If you've got a database with some tables in and you just want to get going, you just want some basic screens that do the job, that can list your data and you can sort it and export it and search and have a menu that opens them all up. One click, pretty much, of your Flying Start Genie will build that for you. It's fab. So I did that just before the webinar to get us a mini application running. And if I just show you this on screen, I've only got two menu buttons in my tabbed UI, but I've got a customers list and I've got an employees list. They're both grids actually, because that's what the fly and search builds at you. And we've also got a little search part that I can display on both. But that built me this just with literally a click. So that got us going. Then what I did is I looked in the properties of the tabbed UI. So I'm in the actual menu component here, and I looked for has smart search, and I enabled it. Now, as soon as you enable it, Dave, you get the benefit of the menu searching with nothing else. Just tick, the menu searching works. So I've got customers and employees here. I've only got two options. It is a bit overkill to put a search in, but hey ho. If I start typing CU, you'll see
it pops right to the top. Yeah. Yeah.
If I start typing employees, oops, then if I could type, I get there's the employees menu. So this is working just like ours did. Obviously the styling isn't exactly the same. That's because we've styled up alpha tracking. You could do the same in this, but the functionality is the same. So one click of the smart search property enables the menu search. Happy days. No JavaScript to write, none of the stuff that we had to do. One click, and that's in itself a useful feature.
So you're half done at this point because you've got the menu search part. Yeah, that's pretty
just with one check. Yeah. So that's if you've got a big menu, a complex menu, and your users are struggling to find their way around it, enable that checkbox, and you've got your smart search, your menu search already working. Right. So that's half the story done. The other half is the database clever searcher, so that when you key something in that looks like a company name or a quotation number or a project reference or a staff member's name, it opens the appropriate screen for you intelligently, semi-intelligently. So that means you haven't got to find the right menu option because the system's doing the hard work for you. It's opening the screen that applies to whatever you key in. So this is where the smart search definition comes in, and you can do 90% of this without any coding. The last 10% requires a couple of lines of XBasic, so I'll just show you that now. So how it works is you create a number of rules, and the rules determine which buttons will be pressed in the menu if the rule is true. So I've created a customer rule. I've just called it custom. It can be called anything you like. If I just show you how that, and that's the first rule that's tested. If I just show you the rule, so it says, if this rule's true, press the customers tabbed UI button. So I'm going to see the customers list on the screen, customers grid. And let's have a look to see how I've done that. I've put a debugger in, I'll show you that working in a minute. This is a breakpoint. So in other languages, you'll know this is a breakpoint. So the code will stop at this point. Then I'm looking up to a SQL database. That's an alpha XBasic function called SQL lookup. It's to the Northwind demo database that I created, again with one click. Alpha is brilliant at creating applications with that database in. It's the Microsoft Northwind database. I'm looking up to the customers table and I'm saying, if what I've typed in is in the company name anywhere, so I'm using a bit of SQL syntax here to say like wildcard, what I've typed in wildcard, then return the company name that it's found. So, and what this test is saying is so in other words, if I find a company, so it's greater than empty string, so it's found something, this is a bit of programmer's shortcut for there's something there, there's a bit of text there, then set the result flag to be true. .t is XBasic for true. So that says this test has been passed. In other words, it's going to trigger the event. And then the last piece of the jigsaw is to say, so press the customer's button, which brings up the customer's grid, but filter it by what I've searched in the company name field. We know it's going to match because we found one on this line. So this will show us the companies, then it will automatically have pre-filtered the grid. Now, if I scroll down, when you go into this little builder, you get loads of help text from the dev team showing you what sorts of things you can do. So I've just put that at the bottom. But essentially, if you know a little bit of XBasic and you can read that help text, you'll be able to write your own code like this. So let's see that in action and check it's actually working. So first thing I'm going to do, Dave, is I'm just going to click the customer's button because we could do it in some company names. Okay, so we've got Alfred's. So if I look for the word Fred, we're expecting that to match a customer. Yeah, agreed?
Yep.
So if I type in Fred and press enter, it's coming to my breakpoint.
Yep.
This is so I can check the code as I'm running it through. I'm just going to press run because I'm not interested in actually running it through, watching it go through. And sure enough, here's my company name that matches the word Fred.
It's opened up a new tab for customers and it's filtered it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
Exactly what I want. Yeah, it's exactly what I wanted. So if I'll do that again, but I'm just going to switch the breakpoint off because it's a little bit distracting.
Yeah.
So let me just switch that off.
And after you switch it off, could you just hold on just for 1 second here?
Sure.
So this is basically the XBasic code just needs to do an if and set a result is all it does here.
It does. The only thing you need to do, Dave, yeah, absolutely, is just
the only thing you
that.
have to do is true or nothing, right? Apparently, right? Because if it filled the if condition, it just wouldn't do anything.
That's right. Yeah, I could have written, yeah, else result.flag is false.
Yeah, but that's fine. Yeah.
It's fine.
And then fantastic, and that's the override. Oh, wow. That's pretty easy. Yeah.
It is pretty easy. Yeah, you just need to know that one line of XBasic. Let me just save that and do that again. So we won't see the debugger this time. I think we've got some customers in with CA. Yeah, we have. So we've got 13. Look, CA. So cactus. Whatever it is here. The CA is in 13.
Yeah.
Let's try BA. BA's given us 4 results. This is really cool. This is really nice. You know. Now let's have a look at the employees. So we've got someone called Fuller, right? So I don't think we've got a customer called Fuller. Let me have a look. So company name here. Let's have a look for Fuller. No, so we don't have a customer with Fuller in, but we do have an employee called Fuller. So if I type in Fuller, I wouldn't expect it to open the customer screen. I would expect it to open the employee screen. So if I just press enter, again, I've got a breakpoint, so I'm just going to run that through, then I'll show you the code afterwards. Sure enough, there's our employee called Andrew Fuller. So that's that intelligent search. So again, I'll just switch the breakpoint off.
And should you have had both a customer and an employee with the name of Fuller, then it would have opened 2 tabs. Is that the...
It wouldn't, no, and that's a little feature request I'm going to send in to the dev team. The way that...
Oh, is it just the first one it finds?
The first one it hits, yeah. What would be great is if there's a checkbox here that says have first one or all rules, you know, first rule or all rules, because
Gotcha. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Yeah, what you actually want in that situation is it to open both tabs, which is how ours works. But it's still very, very helpful. So if I key in CA, we get the customers, the 13 customers. If I key in Fuller, I'm going to get the employee that matches Fuller.
Yeah.
So
that's a terrific feature request too. I mean, having the way your system works is terrific because you could be looking at invoices, or you could be looking at quotations, or you could be looking at notes, or you could be looking at any other table that you've got and say, show me everything about this employer, this customer, this contact.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to send that in as a feature request straight after this webinar, because I think, it would be very cool for that smart search definition just to have that extra option. Do I want the first one, or do I want all that match?
Yeah, exactly.
But so that's as simple as that. So the employee one,
Now,
it is cool.
Quick question for you. Back on searching through the menu, someone had asked, does it also do partial search when searching through the menu? Like if you typed in us, would it find customer, or does it have to just be the first 2 letters?
No, anything. Yeah, it will just work. So if I just flick back to either the built-in alpha one or ours, it's partial. So if if I just type in OJ, I'm getting project because there's an OJ in project. Yeah, I'm getting all the projects there. If I type in man, I'll get anything to do with management. So it's a partial search. Yeah.
Good. So you don't have to remember how it started. If you just remember a bit of it, that's probably going to be
any
enough.
part of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Wow, really cool. Yeah.
Okay. So that's built into Alpha Anywhere. So you can enable it just with one, just by checking the smart search box. That instantly gives you menu searching. If you want to extend it to do something like we did, then you need a little bit of XBasic, but there's really helpful XBasic tips in there, and the code you're writing is pretty straightforward. So So yeah, and I think it's a very, very cool feature. Like I did that, one of my caveats earlier, Dave, I said, just be careful about your performance. Let's suppose you've got 10 parts to your system. You've got customers, promoters, projects, people, blah, 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 blah.
Each with a
If,
million records and you're doing like a
yeah,
partial wildcard search.
hey,
Yeah,
you've
when you
got
hit
it.
that's you might be waiting. That's true. Just
Yeah.
get a bigger
But he's going to
database.
be checking each of the 10 potentially, then, yeah. So
That is
just
a point. So, but
despairingly,
you could write your XBasic filter so that it was a little bit smarter. I mean, as you say, you can always
yeah,
optimize
yeah,
things. So I can imagine you could
absolutely.
optimize on that as well too.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Robin,
you're in control of it.
I'd heard of Smart Search and I hadn't seen it in action. I knew it was something I needed to catch up on, but this is amazing. This is a really cool
It's
feature.
cool, isn't it? Isn't it cool? Yeah, it's
Thanks
really cool.
for
Really.
suggesting it, and as a
Oh,
result,
it does
it's
stop
here on the
it. Stop
product.
saying that. You're making me play. You're making me play. Anyway, it's Tom that coded it, so Tom takes half the credit. A couple
That
of
sounds
things then,
great.
just to wrap up.
Okay.
I did say there's an end to this. Do you know what they are?
Yes. Well, I would call them the big ones, even though they're not labeled properly. I would say that would be a Cadbury egg, but it would be a chocolate
An
egg,
Easter egg?
an Easter egg.
Yeah, Easter egg.
Okay, an Easter egg. Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you see where I'm going with this now.
Yeah.
So this,
Not that quick, am I? Oh, it's an Easter egg. All right, cool. Thank
it's an
you.
Easter egg. Yeah. So an Easter egg I'm going back to our live software here now. An
Yeah.
Easter egg is, if you're not familiar, if you're a new developer, you might never have not have heard of them. They're little things little presents that programmers, developers leave in their software for the users to find. That's what an Easter egg is. And back in the day, there used to be web forums galore of people saying, I found another Easter egg in Microsoft Excel or in Gmail or whatever, and it normally involves some sort of random 5 clicks here, 3 clicks there, stand on one leg and utter the magic word, and then something appears.
Right.
Well, I like to hide Easter eggs in our software, Dave, and I use our smart search for doing this. So in Alpha Track, now I'm saying this out that no one's ever heard this before. This is this is a big reveal for Start Software. But if I what's your favorite arcade game, Dave? Am I right saying it's Snake? Please tell me it's Snake.
Oh yeah, it's got to be Snake, of course. Yeah.
There we go. Right.
You
So we
added
can.
Snake.
Yeah. So if you oh no, everyone's gonna be watching me playing Snake. There we go. I'm off. So if you've not seen Snake before, it was popular on Nokia phones back in I don't know 1980 or something. Very cool. I'll crash just to kill myself. There we go. I've just died. So if you type Snake into Alpha Tracker's smart search box, universal search box, that's what happens. You get to play Snake.
That's
and what I
hilarious.
might do, it is. And what I might do, I showed this to somebody earlier when I was just running through what I was going to say today, and they said, "Oh, this is great! All these hundreds of companies that use Alpha Tracker, we can have a top score, best scores thing feature, so that when you finished, you appear on like a leader list, like a leaderboard.
A little leaderboard, yeah.
Yeah, across all the different companies. That'd be so cool. Unfortunately, I'd probably get into a lot of trouble because all of my customers would say, "You're getting all my staff to waste their time and playing
I was
Snake."
about to say. Well,
Make
you
me
could
laugh.
sell them back metrics that would say, "Hey, look how better
Yeah, that's true.
your guys are compared to the other companies."
Yeah, we could get people sacked and we get people fired. Give them the ammunition of this guy's been playing Snake all day.
That's great. Hey, we've got another question.
And I must say, just finally, one of these webinars, Dave, if we 1 month when we do them together again, I might even try and build Snake using a list control. I think it's possible.
That would be incredibly cool.
Yeah, I think we might have fun doing that. We'll try and build an arcade game using an alpha data control. That'll keep us entertained for a webinar.
Well, version 1 of Alpha, many years ago in the 1990s, had an Easter egg. It was a Space Invaders game, except the aliens were little black and white pictures of the developers, so people were shooting Cell 1 and C.
Oh, I'd love that. I have to say my favorite was Galaxians. I like Galaxians better than Space Invaders, but
Galaxians is the best, yeah. Where you capture the ship, fantastic. But wait, I do have one final question. So before,
of course you can,
before we let you go, sorry. So someone said, okay, if you're doing like a long search, because you had pointed out that, if you're searching millions of things, it could take forever. Would it be possible to do some sort of cancel button on that? I imagine the answer is yes if you're doing it as your own Ajax callback, because you could get it back then as chunked responses, and during the chunked response, you're allowed to cancel stuff. But I don't know if the built-in feature
Yes.
would let you do that.
Yeah, I'm going to say a qualified yes on that. Yeah, once
Yeah,
you've issued the search to, for example, SQL Server or MySQL, then you've issued the search. So even
yeah,
if you cancel your client-side activity, you can't actually cancel what SQL's doing, at least not easily. So
right.
a qualified yes. You could certainly do it if you were searching 10 different tables. You could, as you say, Dave, you could go into chunked responses and stop the process continuing. But the individual search requests to SQL, once they're issued.
Yeah,
Some people don't really actually with client server, with not client server, with browser server type applications. If your browser issues the request to the server's doing something. It doesn't matter if you close your browser. The server's going to carry on doing it. It doesn't know that you've closed your browser until it tries to push the answer back to the browser, which is no longer there. So
right.
yeah, it's a qualified yes. You could certainly, if you had lots of tables you were querying, you certainly could
But
interrupt
if
the
it were
process
one,
for sure.
you couldn't really necessarily interrupt it right in the middle.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah,
sense. Gotcha. Robin, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for showing up today. If you've got further questions, of course, you could send them over to guides, GUIDES at alphasoftware.com. Robin, have a great night. I understand you're going off to a beer festival tonight.
yeah. You said you wouldn't say. I am going to be a festival, and I'm looking forward to it.
Should I
Cheers,
say?
Dave.
I meant knitting.
Clap
All
on for
right.
you, Dave. Cheers.
Take care, man. Bye-bye.